Chat, where we explore the lives, lessons, and legacies of extraordinary changemakers. Today, our guest is a powerhouse who's a woman whose story stretches mango trees of Jamaica to global stages of influence. Dr. Ava Eagle Brown is an international best-selling author, a dynamic speaker, an entrepreneur, and the founder of the Black River Film Festival and Book to Biz Publishing. She's walked through the fire and came out with a purpose in her bones. And today, we she's here to talk to us about her roots, reliance, and the future of Caribbean storytelling. My host and partner in crime, Chris Daly, take it away.
Thank you, Janice, and welcome, Dr. Ava, to our conversation this evening.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored and humbled and grateful for being here with you.
Wonderful. I know we're gonna have a great time. First, we'd like to know a little about your how life shaped you as a youngster. You've spoken so powerful about your early life in Jamaica. Can you take us back to your childhood? What are some of the defining memories that shape you into the woman you have become?
Absolutely, Chris. So, my childhood in Jamaica was marked by beauty, but also brutality. And I remember the scent of things like ripe mangoes and the rhythm of rural life and the deep rooted sense of community, even amidst the poverty stricken areas that I grew up in. But I also recall the weight of trauma. Growing up in a space where safety was not guaranteed for me in particular, that was difficult. And those experiences carved me into both a sensitivity to suffering and a ferocious will to rise to become the best of who I am. And they didn't just shape me, but they've actually helped to forge the woman I have become today. So, in a nutshell, I had a mixture of hardship, but a mixture of love and a mixture of great growing up and being tomboy and running around. But within all of that, there were pockets of trauma that have impacted and shaped the experiences and the woman I have become today.
Wow. Are there some of the key figures that helped shape that life, that poured into you, that challenged you, that perhaps planted seeds that you developed this fierce resilience?
Absolutely. So I'd say my mother was quite a profound presence in my life. She was young. I mean, my mother had me at as young as 14, but she really was profound. She was a woman of deep faith, and she worked really hard. And there were quite a number of us as children. But interestingly, some of the most impactful things about my mom was just how supportive she was, and just how she was resilient. My mom was very resilient, is resilient because she's still alive. My mom was that person who my mom was a hunter. She was the lioness that went out and hunted for the pack. And I really
Mm.
love that. I think one of the women in my life, if I were to really reflect at this age, is my mom. And then there was also my teachers in high school. I went to St. Elizabeth Technical High School, where my two teachers that I really am in touch with today, Mrs. Taylor and Mrs. Johnson, they fed me, they encouraged, they loved on me. Those were three impactful women in my life. And their love, their resiliency, their faith have stayed with me. And as I grew older, authors like Maya Angelou, became virtual mentors, Lisa
Mm.
Nichols, and proof that words could liberate you. So those are the women who have impacted my life.
Speak a little about the diaspora experience too. Could you give us some insight into that part of you?
Yeah, I share my time now between Jamaica and the UK. In the last couple of years, I've spent more time in Jamaica than the UK, but I've lived in the UK, taught in the UK, worked in the UK. I've worked in the bank in the UK. I've managed retail in the UK. I've worked for the Department of Work and Pension, and lived in England for quite a lot of time and loved the experience. Was always the mango girl, carried that
Mm.
resiliency. And so I became a mentor, a coach, an NLP practitioner, and was always very big on carrying that storytelling part of me into my diaspora experience. Now I've come back to Jamaica. I'm actually an admin on a Facebook group where it's female only, but it's a lot of female who are looking to come back into the diaspora. So I've always stayed connected, involved, and rooted in both sides of the pond. Actually, and storytelling is how I do that.
Wow, this is great. Well, your life is like a storybook. It's like a winding river. You're in education, banking, real real estate, realtor, living in two countries. How do for all these junctures in your life, the time to pivot for each chapter of your life? And what did it teach you about yourself?
That's really interesting. How do I know when to pivot? I think for me personally, it's a case of, I believe that purpose is not static. And by that I mean is understanding for me personally that sometimes in life the things that you do them for a moment and a season. And a lot of people say they don't agree, but for me, I know when to pivot. I know when I'm a Christian, and I believe in the story of when Elijah went to the brook, and God actually told him. God could forecast, and because he's all knowing, and God could forecast and know that actually the brook is going to dry up. So and Elijah was obedient. So each chapter for me is like a necessary lesson. And so I believe that being able to pivot is necessary, because the moments will come when you understand that you can no longer reconcile who you are becoming with what you're doing, or you can no longer stay in that space. So you have to learn that alignment is sacred. And when your soul begins to chafe, it's time to move on to something else. And that's how I treat pivoting in these spaces and times.
Right. Well, let's deal with one moment in particular. We moved from the structuredness of corporate world into authorship and entrepreneurship around the manga girl. Walk us through that pivot point for yourself.
Oh my God, I love this. I'm about to publish a book at the end of this month called The Hollywood Bastard.
Okay.
And and that book is gonna tell us. So let me tell you what happened. I wrote my book, The Mango Girl, without knowing that I was writing. So first of all, I actually failed English in high school. And I could not speak English for a very long time, because environment is important, as we know, and environment can shape you. And so I grew up in an environment whereby nobody spoke English, bar when I went to school. And even then, it was a mixture of the dialect. And so I failed English. And so I remember being a child who did not know who my father was. And in the days that I grew up in the 70s, I sound old. You were seen and not heard. And so I've
Mm.
always been a little bit emboldened. And I remember asking my mom, because the kids would tease me. I was bullied in high school. And the kids would tease me and ask me about, who's my father. I was called a jacket. And the Jamaican terminology, I think,
Oh,
probably misplaced, but for when you don't know who your father is, or who you have more than one fathers. And I remember going home and asking my mom, who's my father? And the beating she gave me was so much that it's almost like figuratively she cut my tongue off. And so I began making what had become a makeshift diary by asking that diary questions. You remember, in the days when you used to play Dolly House, we call it in Jamaica, and the stick where your children, you beat the stick.
okay.
So the diary became that little book that I didn't understand, little notes in a carrier bag, black scandal bag for those who are Jamaicans. If you are international, it's black, it's a plastic bag that was opaque. And I would keep those notes in there. And over time, it grew into a book. And when I moved to London, after I was tragically, sexually assaulted in Jamaica, I had to run away from my sanity. I
Mm.
actually was sitting in a park in Streatham Common, and I was talking to a friend of mine, Camelia, and she said, "Girl, that is a book. Your story is a book." And she actually made me started to believe. So I started writing, long story short, and I was in university trying to do my master's, failed one of my courses, and I'm giving you the quick version. And I was given an assignment. I was in Norway, and I was given an assignment to write about something. And I wrote about myself because I was stuck. I was in the middle of getting divorced and had a young baby, and life was
Mm.
hard. And I wrote about myself. And my university invited me in, and I thought I had failed. Long story short, I didn't fail. They wanted to do a case study on me because they couldn't understand if this was true. And so the case study was done, and the Financial Times did a piece on me. The Financial Times, equivalent to the New York Times, and life took an interesting pathway. I'm giving you the short version. And
Hmm.
so I was now conned by a number of persons who said they were going to make my book into a film. I lost 100,000 US dollars in that
Oh,
process.
gee.
And I got really frustrated. I nearly became homeless with my children. I nearly lost my sanity. I got divorced. A lot was going on. And so when I realized that actually the reason that I was robbed was because I didn't understand the area in which I deep dived, I decided, I took a very conscious decision that I was going to create my own table. And so I started authorship. And from authorship, when I moved to Jamaica, I recognized that where I'm from in the community, which is rural Jamaica, there was not enough. I'd invested in a movie to be made in South Africa. And it was around that conversation that I started realizing that there is a need to bring film and creativity to the south coast of Jamaica. Black River being the first town in this Western hemisphere that had gotten electricity. And that's how I moved from authorship to cinematography. And I'm about to host the second Black River Film Festival, which is set to be so lit and so dope. Not appropriate for my generation, that kind of word. But that's how I got there. It's a long way, but I hope you got that. I
Oh,
decided
gee.
that I was gonna take hold of my life and no longer have people tell me how to create something. I was gonna be at that table making the decisions. That's what happened.
This is wonderful. So you've decided to claim your agency and now started both a publishing house and a
Yes,
film festival to
absolutely.
amplify and use media to be able to tell your story and others' story.
But also to prevent others from getting duped like I did. The
Ah,
interesting thing though is that I'm a trained teacher, and the teacher in me is not going to let me go. So when I created the Black River Film Festival, I created a youth festival. So we have a youth festival that happens separate from the adult festival because I'm getting older, and I realize that we're getting older and we're not passing the baton. And so it was imperative of me to make sure that I actually do a youth festival as well, and also widen the scope of the youth of this side of Jamaica, because Kingston and Montego Bay and Ocho Rios are not just what Jamaica is about.
hmm, that's good. Well, give us your sense. Now you live in both spaces, and you're here driving media in Jamaica. Um, Jamaica is certainly a vibrant place, right? That then you used to capture. But there's talent and then there's opportunity, and there's a gap in those two. Give us your sense of where the gaps are and what's going to take to raise up uh, a really good and sustainable media environment within Jamaica.
So the politician in me wants to answer you politically, but
Okay.
I'm going to answer you as Ava. Jamaica is a beautiful place, and Jamaica has got so much to offer. There's a lot here. Jamaica has really changed. I mean, I don't know if you guys have been here recently, but Jamaica has changed in a lot of ways. I mean, you can sit here and you can order on Amazon and get it within a week. I mean, I'm sure that will change. But Jamaica has got a lot of scope for growth and a lot of scope for collaborative growth. And the missing link for me is often infrastructure, a system that support talent with training, resources, and exposure. I'm speaking from my part. So many creatives are brilliant, but they lack access to finance. One of the biggest thing in and media is the creative spaces where media comes in. So we need resources. I spoke at an event last week, I think it was. Um, in London virtually. It was a creative event, and the British High Commissioner to Jamaica was there, Judith Slater, myself, the film commissioner Jackie Jackson, and some other persons from the creative space. And the big thing was it was funding. We lack funding.
Mm.
We lack access to funding, but we also need to be more collaborative as people. And I think we need to move a little bit faster with technology. So I just came back from London, and when you go to like London, it's so much further ahead. And I know sometimes you can't compare London and the US with Jamaica, but the reality is that there are lots of opportunities here for media. And through the Black River Film Festival and my publishing house, I aim to create those little bridges, both literally and metaphorically. But we need to decentralize opportunities so it reaches every corner of Jamaica and not just Kingston. And I think that's what I would say on that matter is how do we look at collaboration across the ponds? And then how do we decentralize and how do we learn to work better together? Those are the things that I would say
Boys,
are some of the opportunities and weaknesses, but also strength that we can look at for Jamaica, in Jamaica, and about Jamaica.
wow. It seems like you're pioneering that kind of idea. It's a new day. You're moving it out of those two mega centers and getting it out and decentralizing it. Uh, how do you think your legacy in affecting other women, Caribbean women, and young women, and giving them hope and inspiration as you pioneer? You're such a powerful pioneer.
I don't consider myself a powerful pioneer, but I hope that the younger generation and the women who watch me come into contact with me, whether it's politically, whether it's through my personal development space or the festival or creatively, I hope that they inherit boldness, not just ability to dream, but the permission to act on those dreams. Because quite often the thing that stops us, I wanted to do a video today and I still do it. My best friend in London, Audrey, said to me today, Ava, you are just born different. And I said, no, we're all born uniquely talented, but you need to activate. I want you to be bold and step forth and activate the heroine, the nanny, the maroon in you. I want young women and women who come into contact me with me to understand and know that their voice is currency, their story is sacred, and their place at the table is non-negotiable. I want them to stop operating in fear, but I want them to step out and start co-creating with purpose. That's the legacy I pray that I am leaving with girls and women and boys behind.
That's so powerful. So tell us, we know that you clearly pioneering in media. You're doing a little thing in politics. Are there any other projects that you're working on? What's what's coming up on your horizon that's exciting you right now?
I get excited about mostly about continuing to merge creativity with impact. You know, I'm working on a new book that we're actually looking. I when I was driving home when we talked earlier, I called the producer and I said, "Guy, I want to talk. I've got 5 minutes. I'm about to shoot a documentary that will be shown at the Black River Film Festival. The first episode. I've just become an aggregator for content for films." For 150 different distribution channels. I look to expand the Black River Film Festival and launching programs of authorship around the Caribbean and the world. And I'm also working on the Mango Girl film, but I can't talk too much about that because I
Okay.
just have contracts that I can't talk about. I hope to meet my husband. I'm single, and that's something I'm not afraid to put
Okay.
out there very boldly. I really hope to be able to. I want to travel and vlog. I really want to, I love time and location freedom. And so, as I am always evolving, the mission remains the same to uplift, amplify, and transform. That's what I'm all about.
Boy, that's such a broad horizon that you've painted. I have one last question for you, Doc. Now you're living in both UK and in Jamaica. Let's talk a little about what does coming back to Jamaica now as an adult, geographically or spiritual, culturally, and professional, what does that mean to you?
Do you know what? On last week Wednesday, my member of parliament, Delroy Story, and I went back to my primary school, and I get really emotional about this. It's all over my social. And I was able to be a part of donating $150,000 to them for sports and development. And I must say to you that it was a 360 moment. In a lot of ways, I got to address his children and all of that, and I'm getting really teary as I speak to you. But I never noticed the mountains. That we have such beautiful mountains, and the
Mm.
Cockpit Mountains kind of wrap around there. And I really had to pause for a second and really just take in how beautiful Jamaica is. For me, coming home is a reclamation. It's not just land; it's language, it's rhythm, it's drums, it's identity. Spirituality, for me, Jamaica is where my roots remind me of who I am. It's where my groundation is. And culturally, Jamaica is where I see brilliance of our people in full color. I feel safe here. I feel like I belong. I feel connected. I feel like I actually am where I am understood, and professionally, it's where I've chosen to sow back into the soil and raised that really raised me. And so coming home for me is both return and revolution. And I continue to see it that way. I love Jamaica. Jamaica is the space where I feel like it has its challenges, dare I say, but it's a space that I feel like when you slip a letter into an envelope, the envelope engulfs and holds space for that letter. That's what Jamaica is for me coming back home. Yeah.
And to that I say amen.
Amen.
Amen. Well, to learn more about Dr. Ava, visit www.avainglesbrown.com. To learn more about Jamaican diaspora, visit jamaicandiaspora.com. To learn more about Chris Daly, visit askchrisdaly.com. Ava, Dr. Ava, we really enjoyed spending time with you. Bye now.
Thank you so much.